joining me today is my co-host,
David Jones, sir.
You alright, mate?
I'm good. I haven't done that in a while, so I thought I'd just throw some little pirate speak in there for you.
Yeah, you fascinate me. Joining us this week, we've got two special guests for our last Rare Trip episode. It's been a month now. Yeah, 5 weeks we've done.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think we were going to go this long, but
it's the final chapter.
Joining us today is Chad.
Hey.
Yeah.
And Rodrigo.
Hey, hello.
Hey, how you guys doing?
It's great.
Yeah, very well. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, not a problem. Glad to have you guys on.
Yeah, no, it was good to get you guys in. I think there's still a few people we haven't spoken to, and they're more than welcome to jump on at any time. But I think for the sake of the show's own good, we wanted to do like one final episode and then just sort of move on, because there's only so much you can talk about.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
we've done what? 8 hours so far.
And especially too because I really wanted to fulfill promises I made to people at the beginning, because I had tried to get these interviews before the trip and that didn't work out, so I'd already made promises to a lot of people and I've been really wanting to make sure I fulfilled those. So just bear with us, and I think that you'll still find this amusing, even if you think it's getting a little bit old. We always learn new things each episode.
You're talking to the audience, not to us.
Yes,
okay.
I'm talking to the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, screw you guys.
We're kind of obligated at this point. We're on the show.
No, yeah, I'm speaking to the audience, the listeners, the loyal listeners who may or may not be there. So,
listeners at home, we'll let Rodrigo go first, because I think Chad's a bit more of a hotshot celebrity. Everyone knows who he is. So
you don't need to hear from me.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, a bit about your history, what you do, and your connection to Rare.
Sure. Well, I'm from Mexico, so I think the only contestant from Mexico that I saw in the social media. I like to do animation. My entry was the 3D animation one, so I love 3D animation, and ever since I was a kid, Rare's been my passion. I'm like in the N64 kind of era, so I started Rare with Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, Donkey Kong 64, and on from there until the Xbox 360 games like Viva Piñata, Perfect Dark, Cameo. So yeah, Rare's been like my kind of ongoing company for the rest of my life. So I really love the kind of games they made. That is the top for me.
awesome. Can you?
I think you're in a very similar company here.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about this studio you have?
Oh yeah, sure. A Seashell studio is also like a kind of video game company studio with sort of Rare likewise style. So I started Seashell Studio with a couple of friends back in 2015. We were starting the company because we had a contest here in Mexico. It's also a video game contest. So we had this idea. We all know a little bit of animation, sound design, modeling, texturing. So we thought getting into the video game part of it. So I started learning a lot about Unity, and that's how I managed to make this alpha game called Running Fable. It's about the hare and the tortoise kind of a story. So it's a racing kind of game, but with a lot of platforming parts. So it's kind of a racing platforming game, and it has visually a lot of Rare's influence. So at the moment we're getting into the beta stage of it. So we are planning to make a release date like probably next year or so. It depends on my team also. And we're planning on releasing on Steam, and from on there we see what happens.
Awesome. Sounds pretty cool. How big of a team do you got? So it was maybe about 20 people or so, you said?
No, we had 6 people.
Oh, 6 people? Oh, I thought I heard you say
Yeah.
like around 15-ish or something. Okay.
Oh, no.
Awesome.
You'd be giving Platonic a run for their money in
Yeah.
that case.
No, yeah, I backed Platonic. I waiting a lot for that game. It's
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I've given them too much of my money.
Yeah, same here.
I think you. How much did you? Do you mind saying how much you pledged, Chad? Because I don't mind saying how much I pledged.
I don't remember the exact amount because it's been well over a year,
Yeah.
but it was exorbitant, and I wound up going in at the tier to get the signed character parade
nice.
poster.
oh,
Yeah,
I remember I was trying to go for the N64 cart, but then I had car troubles, and then I felt bad about how much money I'd already spent on the Kickstarter, so I had to stop before I got to that tier. But yeah.
Yeah. No, that one will be good. Yeah. So I have a question. Can I ask Rodrigo a question? I
Yeah.
know I'm not a host, but
No, go ahead.
I'm curious about the title that you're working on. Is the intention that it would be played with a controller, or are you focusing on a mouse and keyboard experience? I'm definitely going to play this. It sounds cool, and I like to support my friends' work. I just want to know,
thanks.
do I need what kind of hardware setup would I need other than getting it on Steam?
well, at the time it's for keyboard and mouse, but it's not that difficult to change the setups in the input settings so it can also be in a controller.
Cool.
So yeah, we're planning on controller and keyboard for the time being.
Awesome.
Okay, cool.
Well,
But
look
it's
forward
being
to that.
developed at the moment. You're just using keyboard and mouse during
Yeah.
the development stage.
Yeah, sure.
Because there's some games which are specifically designed around a controller. For example, like Super Meat Boy. When you load that up on Steam, it comes up with a notification saying play this game with a controller and nothing else. But
Right.
yeah, it's always cool to have the option. And
Yeah.
I know when I'm playing a game on computer, I actually prefer to use keyboard and mouse wherever possible. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
There's some people
Definitely
that-
sounds like a really interesting
Mhm.
project.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
thanks.
looking forward to it. I'll definitely keep an eye on that. Awesome. What were you saying, Kev?
Oh, I was just going to say, Chad, if you want to give us a little bit of a rundown on who you are, what you do, and
sure.
your connection to Rare.
Yeah. So I've been. I guess I was sort of a Rare fan before I realized it. The first time that I knew Rare was something I wanted to pay attention to was Donkey Kong Country, and I think that it was sort of a brilliant move for them to start branding all of their titles with that classic Rareware logo that we all know. That became the mark of quality through the mid to late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, one of my very first one of the first 3 games that I purchased, when I was really young, I think I told this story on that community spotlight they did on the Rare website. I was my parents were sort of anti-video games when I was really young, not for any religious reasons, more like the early 90s overprotective parenting, stranger danger, all that kind of stuff. The 90s were a weird time in America, video games were not something they wanted me to spend my time, but as kind of a curious kid obsessed with technology, and games were sort of on the cutting edge of that, and I would always try and sneak in time on the NES whenever I'd go over to my friends' houses, that kind of thing. So finally it got to the point where I wrote a persuasive essay in school to convince my parents to allow me to spend my lawn mowing money on a Game Boy. And when I got my Game Boy, I got 3 games with it: Super Mario Land, Tetris, and Sneaky Snakes, which was the Game Boy version of Snake, Rattle, and Roll. It was a Rare game, and I absolutely loved it. And I actually think Sneaky Snakes is a better game than Snake, Rattle, and Roll. It's all those isometric frustrations that I'm sure you guys have played it on Rare Replay.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult. Yeah, it's hard to tell where that spot shadow is, and it's very floaty kind of controls. I love Snake, Rattle, and Roll, and it definitely pushed the NES technologically. But when you take that formula and turn it into a 2D platformer, it just clicks into place, and that's what Sneaky Snakes is. So that was my first Rare game, and then I started doing DK Vine with my collaborator Heil, who was also on the Rare trip in 1999, and yeah, we took a little hiatus from that while we worked on a TV show in college, but we came back about 6-7 years ago, and it's been going strong ever since.
Awesome.
But
Yeah.
DK Vine itself, just to confirm, it never actually went away, did it? Like, didn't you leave it in the hands of other people?
Oh yeah. When Heil and I took our hiatus in college, I think there was only a couple months in which DK Vine, the site, wasn't there, but we still had an active forum. That was when Heil and I were doing a webcomic that sort of went nowhere. But then we kept the domain and we pointed it to our webcomic, and then we just basically restored the archive of DK Vine and fixed the DNS, and it all pointed right back. But yeah, DK Vine never went away. Heil and I have been stewards of it for, we've been overseeing the thing for probably. Let's say 14 of the 17 years it's been around. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I believe you guys are the longest standing sort of Rare-based fan site. I mean, yours is kind of a little bit more expanded into, like, Donkey Kong. But I don't think there's anyone out there that's been longer than you still left, is there? As far as I know.
Still left? Probably not. Yeah, I think that if RareNet were still around, they would have beat us, and if Rare Ops... No, we're older than Rare Ops. Yeah, RareNet would have been the only possible contender, but they dissolved long ago.
Yeah, I know. Kev doesn't remember RareNet at all. I know we've talked about this, but that's the one that I remember the most when I first got internet, was RareNet, because I think that was before a lot... I think were they the first ones? You might have better memory on this than I do.
Yeah, there were Dan and Trevor were the two guys that ran RareNet.
Okay, yeah. I don't even remember the guys' names. I just remember that was the Rare site to go to in like mid-90s when the internet was just
Well,
starting.
there weren't too many like actual dedicated, professionally built fan sites back then, were there? It was like, yeah, a lot of people would do like little GeoCity sites,
Yeah.
but
Oh, I remember the Unofficial World of Nintendo is one of my favorites, if anyone remembers that.
Yeah, there were lots of that. We actually, in the very early days, DK Vine participated in web rings. I don't know
Oh
if you-
god,
if you guys
remember
those.
I do.
yeah.
I
You just put a little widget at the bottom of your page, and then you could either click next, and it was sort of like a Rolodex of websites, or you could click random and just go to a
Yes.
random site that's sort of tangentially related to that one.
I used to be really into Sonic the Hedgehog as well, so I would just go on the Sonic the Hedgehog web rings and just keep going through the sites. Oh man, whatever happened to the
So I
web
guess
rings?
so you guys, all three of you, Rodrigo, you said you came in the N64 era, and
Yeah.
one of you guys alluded to that being the same case for you. So I'm the oldest one here as far as Rare fandom, I guess.
Yeah, probably.
I started
Well,
with
I
the-
came in
Go ahead.
earlier on, but it wasn't really to my knowledge. Like,
Oh, same here. Okay.
I played Captain Skyhawk in like 1992, 93. I was like 4 or 5 years old, and I didn't know that was a Rare game till like years later. And then Donkey Kong Country I got into around about 95, 96, and again I really didn't. I was like 7 or 8 years old, so I didn't pay attention to the logos of the developers.
Right.
It wasn't until
Right.
I think it was Blast Core, either Blast Core or GoldenEye, when I actually noticed the symbol on the box, and it just suddenly clicked in my head that it was the same as the Donkey Kong
Yeah.
Country.
Don-
And then it finally all made sense, and then I got Nintendo magazines and I started reading more about this company Rare. So it was around about 97, 98 when I actually understood what Rare was.
Yeah, Donkey Kong Country was my first, but I was completely aware of the Rare logo. I just didn't know what it meant back then because the graphics were so different. I actually thought that Rare was like some sort of term for this new graphical style they were using. Like to me, it was still a Nintendo game. I didn't understand. I don't know how old I would have been then, but yeah.
Oh, well, that's because
well,
you probably got Nintendo Power VHS tapes that led you down that path of
Yeah.
understanding.
I still have at least one of those. Man,
They go to Redmond, Washington to talk about DKC for 20 minutes, and they have like a 10-second clip of them ringing Rare. And
Right.
That's the only reference to Rare in the whole tape.
And then they go to the Twycross Zoo, which is actually the Seattle Zoo.
Is it really?
Well, think about it. Why would they be talking to Tim Stamper over a telephone and then immediately go to the Twycross Zoo?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I haven't been to either, but yeah, that's kind of a logical assumption to make. Awesome.
Oh god. There was a very quickly before we move on, I just wanted to ask Chad, when you said about Sneaky Snakes,
Yes.
was that like a major hit in the States? Like, I'm curious as to why that
Not
was one
at
of
all.
your 3 purchases alongside Mario and Tetris.
To be
Why
honest,
Sneaky Snakes?
as a kid, I've always really been interested in nature, and I had a corn snake was my first pet. My dad had a dog, but like my first pet that I owned was a snake. I had a tarantula that I named Squitter, of course. Yeah, I mean, I've just been really into kind of creepy crawlies, and you know, I was the 5-year-old that would see a snake and be able to examine the shape of its head to know whether or not it's venomous, and I would go try and catch it. And so, like, I'm into creatures and animals, and especially, you know, ones that, you know, I grew up in Texas, and our neighborhood was sort of in active development, so there was a lot of open land before those plots were built, and there was this sort of, it's like a drainage river running behind our house, and I would go down there, and of course there were the venomous ones, water moccasins, but you'd also find lots of really cool creatures and stuff. So the draw to Sneaky Snakes was just because it had snakes in the title. So that's literally all it was. I also bought my next round of Game Boy games. In there was a puzzler called Wild Snakes that was done by the creator of Tetris, and that was sort of a think of, you know, that game Apple, where or Snake, where you go around eating the apple and it gets longer and longer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Think about that, only there's gravity involved and they're falling down from the top, and you have to sort of guide the snake and take up as little space as possible.
So it's like a mashup of Tetris and Snake.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, basically. So that was another game that I bought as a kid just because it had Snake in the title.
Yeah, I honestly had no idea that Sneaky Snakes was even a thing until I discovered the Rare website and looked at their, like, you know, big archive of back releases. Like,
Yeah.
I don't even remember seeing that in a store. So I guess it's good that you found it.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, I guess, like, historically, handheld Rare games have never really done that well. Aside from Donkey Kong Land, like, I can't really think of any handheld Rare game that really took off.
I
missing
think the
something?
portable Killer Instinct did alright. I'm not really sure. But that's probably
Yeah,
also because it had the Rare logo, which a lot of the other ones didn't, so no one knew.
I think that maybe that might be owing to this, I guess the trend in handheld games in those days was that they were sort of a watered-down version, or at least the perception is that they're a watered-down version of a counterpart on a console. In Sneaky Snake's case, though, as I said earlier, I think it's actually the superior version because it's simpler. But I think that perception is unfortunate in a lot of the later cases, like It's Mr. Pants and Saberwolf, that are, you know, are their own experiences that definitely deserve to be played, but people sort of they cast immediate aspersions on them because they think
Right.
that they're just lesser versions of something else.
Yeah,
Right.
I really loved a lot of the Game Boy Advance games, especially like Grunty's Revenge. I thought it was great. Like, I'd never seen anyone do something like that, try to put a 3D platformer and actually make it work. And same with Saberwolf. That was just, I was kind of expecting it to be, you know, really just like the old games with better graphics, the old Saberwolf games, but they kind of just came up with a whole new concept that used sort of the ideas and just ran with it, and it was great. But anywho, probably should move on to contest entries. And Rodrigo, would you be willing to kind of walk us through the inspiration and creation of your Sea of Thieves contest entry? 'Cause I think yours had to be the most elaborate out of anyone to make a full CGI cartoon for your entry.
Yeah, sure. Well, from the time I saw the contest, I saw it like I'm checking rare videos all the time, so it was like the day they posted, the day I saw it. So I started getting ideas together. I scrapped like 6 or 7 ideas, but I knew I wanted to do something in animation, because there won't be a lot of animations due to the time we had. So well, I started getting ideas together. I wanted to do something like kind of a dream stuff. And then I knew I wanted to do a pirate, but kind of a dream theme. So then I just wanted to incorporate something like fictional, like not just a boat in the sea, because it's going to be like very common in kind of thinking of another people that are also entering the contest. They can also pull off a boat in the sea. So I wanted to do like kind of my first idea was an steampunk boat. So that's what I had the idea of the steampunk kind of look, and then it moved on into what had like most of the rare inspiration kind of look. And well, then from there I started doing the animatic. I also posted a thing in Twitter about the animatic, and from there I started getting a friend to help me with the 3D models, the character models, and the boat. And well, I made the rest of the thing, the texturing, the animation, also like the composition. It was a little bit difficult for me because I'm most 3D animator, but I started making composition like a few months ago, so I wanted to give it a try.
Well,
what else?
You taught yourself how to write music for this piece, or
No.
Oh.
No, the music part was from another friend who is also the music compositor from Seashell Studio. So
when you say composition, are you referring to the visual composition?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay.
The kind of the last thing, the flare and color correction, all that stuff. That's mostly can be done in After Effects, but I tried using the Blender as well to make division of layers, and it was a lot of hard work that I hadn't done before. So that part was like the big struggle. Apart from the clouds were like I didn't know if I will be able to finish, because the clouds render time was insane. I had like a couple of weeks, like 1 or 2 weeks before the contest finished, so I was very afraid that I wouldn't finish the clouds, because there were volumetric clouds that needed a lot of computers to render. So I got a lot of help from my work. I was working on a TV channel, and I started getting Dropbox together to sync all the work, so I can make a little bit render in some computers and in my house. So that's how I managed to finish the clouds in time.
Oh wow. How long did it take you from like once you started the project to finish it? Sounds really elaborate.
Well, yeah, I started from the very first day, and I got the idea together and the animatic like in a week or a week and a half. And from on there, I started doing animation things. My friend helped me with the 3D models, so he also ended them up really quickly. But the boat was not finished until like when I had like 3 or 4 weeks, no, probably 3 weeks. So it was like a rush kind of boat. I wanted to make more detail to it, but I couldn't, because time was like ahead of all the time.
Oh yeah, that's completely understandable. I mean, no one else even considered doing something like you did. So
Yeah, when I saw that come in, I was just blown away
Wow.
by it.
Yeah.
I thought it was something pre-existing. You know, some people were putting in contest entries that, you know, they had like taken a cosplay photo years ago, and this is me dressed as a mermaid, or you know.
Yeah,
But
right.
when I saw your entry, Rodrigo, I thought surely there's no way this was created for the project or for the contest. And then you look in the video, obviously, you know, you have visual elements of Rare right there in the thing. So
Yeah, I had nothing before because I knew I could use some assets that I already have, but it wouldn't look so good. And the idea that I had was as well like different from anything any assets that I already have. So yeah, I need to create. I needed to create everything from scratch.
Oh man, that's insane. I am very impressed with you. It's
Thanks.
beyond my skills. Like, I've messed around a little bit in animation, and not even like stuff using 3D models, just like, you know, sort of like the bone rigged 2D animation. It took me like a week to get a minute and a half of anything. So man, I'm very impressed.
Thanks a lot.
is that the same sort of stuff that you do professionally, apart from your game development? You said you worked at a TV studio.
Yeah.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah, I worked in a TV studio, but I changed my work like 2 weeks ago to an apps developer kind of work. In the TV studio, I used to edit and make some 3D animation that I told my boss I wanted to do 3D animation because I know how to make character animation. So it was like my proposal, but then I saw this new offering that was more focused on characters and modeling everything like in 3D and Unity. So that's why I changed works like 2 weeks ago. And yeah, we're developing now apps for VR and augmented reality 360 videos. So
Awesome.
it's been an incredible trip now because I'm learning stuff that I didn't know. I've never done a VR kind of video, and that's what I'm doing right now.
That must be very exciting. That's such a, you know, new field that's really on the cusp of public attention right now, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's really great to get into right now because there's so few people doing it. When people do get these devices, they're going to be that much more likely to check out anything you would do because they're so starved for content right at the beginning. So.
Yeah, sure. And the Oculus Rift is, it's not that kind of new, but I always look at it and say, it's cool, but it can probably wear out in a couple of years. But now that I'm using it, it's so immersive. Like you just put on the glasses, and your brain kind of believes that you're in the space. So it's not like something that can go on without people noticing. I think it's something that will really stick.
I need to get a computer that can handle it. Right now, I just have a Samsung Gear, which is not nearly as good. But even then, it's like I want to absorb like all of the content that I have available for it, and it's just. You know, I want that full immersion, though, eventually to get something that can actually track my head movements, which the Gear VR doesn't do, so...
Okay.
Yeah, I imagine if you put out some apps for it, you know, let me know and I'll check it out once I ever have something that can handle that. But, yeah.
I've been thinking that since the Oculus was kickstarted, that it would be a really great way to revitalize the arcade business model. Because it is at this point, it's sort of cost prohibitive for your average consumer, at least to get the hardware to run it, as you said, Dave. But yeah, I mean, think about having an arcade or like an adult arcade, a Dave and Buster's thing. I don't know if those are in Mexico or the UK, but basically a place where you can go have a few drinks, put on an Oculus Rift, and run around in a mech for a while, and then have another drink and do it all over again. I mean that business model, I think, would be so ripe for...
Yeah, I know. I've actually talked about that. I don't have the money to start such a thing. But I've always suggested, man, if you ever got the money to start a business, this would be a great idea. Especially because there's so much technologies that you could bring together that no one's can afford to. Because you have the Rift, you have like the Omnitread from Full Movement. You could get in like one of those kind of shock vests that like rumble when you're hit. You could combine all those things and create something that no one's gonna have enough money to replicate in their home. I mean,
it's very strange that you guys have brought this up actually, because I'm not going to go too in depth into this like live on air, but basically, well, I'm sort of coming into a bit of money soon, a bit more than I expected through inheritance, and I've been like, rather than just piss it all away, I've been really thinking about a way to make that money work for my future, to invest in some sort of business idea. And like I've already decided I'm moving to the city, not Birmingham, there's another sort of city nearby called Worcester, and I was actually thinking the past few weeks about some sort of arcade / pub. Like I think the traditional arcade model is dead now, but I was thinking of ideas what I could do to really set myself apart from the competition. And I was actually just starting to look at like VR and like how cost effective it would be to maybe set up essentially a barcade, but like more focused on VR rather than traditional gaming.
Yeah,
so
a VR-cade.
Sorry?
A VR-cade.
Ah, clever.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just really strange you guys brought that up when I spent like the last week going over ideas with my friends. So. But yeah,
Cool.
Well, now everyone's going to steal the idea. All the thousands and millions of people who listen to this podcast.
Yeah. All I ask, Kev, is when I visit that in 3 years' time, just give me a couple tokens on the sly.
Maybe. We'll see.
Maybe.
I'm not going to remember the little people.
Yeah, just going to be like a big VR kingpin going around with diamond crested. Oh shoot! What do they call that little? Like one of those little canes, like a diamond at the head of it. I feel like there's a
like the
special
John
name.
Hammond thing. Where
Yeah. I feel like there's a specific name for it, but I can't think of what it is.
A walking stick?
A walking stick? There you go.
I don't know.
A rich man's walking stick.
Cane.
A cane. There you go. It's
So-
what you use to beat the poor people with, so you can get them out of your way. As you.
Exactly. So yeah, cheers for that, Rodrigo. Anyway, I say we're actually, I can't believe we're over half an hour already. So I was just going to ask Chad. I know you've done like 5 or 6 hours worth of conversation about the E3 trip, but from what I remember,
is that all?
Yeah. We need more.
Actually, no, sorry, E3. I'm talking about Rare. Yeah. Oh, combined with E3, it's probably more like 15 hours now. But
It's an insane amount of content. They say brevity is the soul of wit, and we are the most witless podcast around.
well, not quite, but.
Yeah, present company excluded.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, but no, I was going to say, like, I've heard you talk a lot about the trip itself, but I don't think you've spoken too much about the actual entry and the development process of your entry. So, if you maybe want to run through that with us.
Sure, yeah. So, I was the one that I had the entry, which was sort of a scroll of paper that was sort of animated, and it had a poem on it that I narrated. And my wife, Janelle, had a little cameo in there. But, yeah, so doing DK Vine, I'm always up against time management because I have, a day job that I usually work about 50 hours because I'm salary, so they essentially own me. And it's stressful, and when I get home, it's often a struggle between working on DK Vine and just letting my brain decompress. So of course I was not going to pass this opportunity up. The one thing that immediately went through my mind is, how am I possibly going to do this and still maintain my DK Vine output? So that got me thinking, what's the... I had to sort of make a compromise. My first thought was to do a piece with character animation similar to a video series that we put together on DK Vine called TED Talks.
Right. Yeah.
which was very lightly animated, but that was also due to time constraints because we foolishly made that an E3 related feature, and then we ran up against a deadline. But I animated that entirely in After Effects, the program Rodrigo mentioned a little bit earlier, and it's not designed for character animation, but you can actually get a lot out of it. The show Archer is done entirely in After Effects, actually. So
wow.
yeah, they've done a lot of scripting on the back end. You can actually there's sort of an abstracted JavaScript style language that you can use to script elements in After Effects. And the Archer production team, I think they do that in Georgia. They actually have kind of written a layer of software on top of After Effects to do what they want. But yeah, the program has a lot of freedom. I just realized pretty quickly there's no possible way that I'm going to have enough time to do the idea that I had in my head. So then that got me thinking, what could I reasonably pull off that would also be at a high enough quality level that I would feel happy with it, much less even come close to being a contender. So I figured I can certainly write. That's well within my time limits. It doesn't take a lot of post-production. And I hadn't ever done anything like the piece that I put together. I've never done a long-form poem before. And because it was divorced from DK Vine, I felt like I had an opportunity to kind of say something with the piece, which is also something I very rarely have an opportunity to do. And I felt like I sort of wanted to... The idea was to tell a story about a kid who, for the purposes of the piece, was essentially me, but who was obsessed with piracy as a young kid and that romanticized notion of adventure, sort of to the detriment of his social life, being a little bit of an outcast, but then sort of entering adulthood and realizing that you still can follow those passions. It was sort of analogous to my experience as a hardcore Rare fan growing up. So, I was bullied as a kid, sort of a nerdy one, but I always sort of held true to my passions, and then ultimately I was able to come back to them as an adult. And so I wanted my poem to sort of parallel that experience and give me an opportunity to speak to the nature of adult fandom and sort of childish passions that you don't necessarily need to put away once you start having a job and bills to pay and a wife and all that stuff. So
Yep.
that was ultimately the idea, and so I wrote the piece, and then I sort of figured out what was my MVP, my minimally viable product, and so I figured I definitely need to have a visual element because it needed to either be a series of photos or a video. Those were the contest parameters. So, I know After Effects fairly well, so I figured at the very least I can make a giant scroll of paper and just move a camera down it. And then I figured, as I started working on it about 3 weeks out from deadline, I figured, okay, I actually have a little bit more time than I thought. So I started drawing the illustrations that accompanied the piece, and then I once I got into post production, I started lightly animating a few of them, but I didn't get too crazy with that. That was essentially where I had to draw the line for because of time limitations. But it was cool. It was fun because I got to try out a lot of new disciplines that I hadn't ever really done before, like poetry, really illustrating on that level. I mean, all the images in there were hand drawn. I was really obsessive about making sure that there was nothing in the video that was any sort of existing IP. I purchased the fonts that I used. I purchased the scroll paper. That was not just a Google image search piece of parchment. I actually licensed those because I was really paranoid about it being rejected for some sort of weird, obscure legal reason. So everything in that piece I either made or put together in post production, or put together myself, or purchased. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of all the idea of it, and then it just kind of came together. I made a giant vertical scroll with all the text and visual elements in Photoshop, and then I pulled that into After Effects and brought it into kind of a 3D space, and moved a 3D camera down the length of the piece in time with my narration, and that was it.
Oh wow.
Cool.
Yeah, it came together really, really well in the end. I think, didn't you only submit it like 2 or 3 days before the closing date?
I think it was something like that. I thought I was a week out, but maybe it was that close. Yeah, it was coming down to it. I eventually had to start cutting features that I had in my head because I just knew there wasn't going to be enough time.
Right.
Yeah, I think it was like 2 days because mine was also like 2 days, and
Yeah.
mine's and Chad were really, really close together.
Yeah.
I'm glad ultimately neither of us knocked each other out.
Yeah. From the time I saw yours, I knew this guy's gonna win.
I felt exactly the same way with yours. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was definitely the strategy, was to, not do what I did and not try to do the whole thing in a weekend just to be first. Because I wasn't sure what how they were judging. It was like they're gonna start pulling people, the first day of the contest. I was like, I gotta get that in as quick as I possibly can.
That was a little unclear, wasn't it? Like
Yeah.
in the stipulations, they said that. Yeah, I forget the wording, but it was a little vague.
They said winners will be chosen from the day after the contest begins, and we know from Jeff, he confirmed on his episode that he was chosen like literally 2 weeks into the competition. Like he entered his entry and then he was chosen like 2 or 3 days later.
Cool.
So and I can't remember, I think one of the other winners mentioned that they found out before the contest ended as well. So
yeah,
I mean,
I feel like most of them though, all the ones that I can think of, I probably might be forgetting, because didn't Alex, Olivier, Rodrigo, and Chad's, those were all fairly late on. I can't remember when Jackie put hers in, but it seems like most of them...
maybe I'm getting confused with... when like Abstracticus and Sebastian said they found out they were going as fans early on. That's where I'm probably getting confused. I guess the fan invites were probably sent out early on. But I suppose that there's another question there for you, Chad. Like, I'm guessing if DK Vine had an open invite, if you hadn't won the contest, would you and Heil have like had a bloody battle to the death over who got the ticket?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to step on confidentiality too much, but
no.
We essentially when it came down that there was the opportunity for a fan invite, it was it was sort of tense. I'll put it that way. So we didn't know because I think the head count was just kind of one per site. So yeah, we were. We didn't know quite how to do that. In fact, we actually found out, and then I forget which episode of the podcast it was, but we recorded that evening. And so we had only been sort of emailing and texting back and forth about how the hell are we going to deal with this situation. And then we had to pretend like there was absolutely no stress and nothing was wrong for the purposes of our podcast. But, it ultimately all worked out in the end, and it was kind of fun that while Heil was there in the official DK Vine capacity, I was there as a fan. So I didn't quite feel a sense of responsibility as much, even though ultimately we were both the people from DK Vine,
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, it was like in the end, it was fair. Like it's not like no one could say, "Oh, you won because you're such a big fan." You won purely on the basis of your entry. It was a fantastic entry.
Yeah, it was great.
So
Yeah.
Oh, well, thanks, guys.
Yes,
by the way,
I mean,
if we're going to be throwing around praise, I loved both of yours. Dave, I don't think that it was to the detriment of your piece that it was so early. I wasn't really impressed with what you put together so quickly.
Yeah.
And Kev's, yours was ballsy as hell, and it made me laugh out loud at several points. And it was a gamble, and even though it ultimately didn't pay off, I totally applaud you for taking the gamble. It was a really interesting piece.
Yeah, you have the artistic integrity. Like
I think it was Jim or Matt I was speaking to just after I uploaded it, and No, it was Jim. That was it. And he said like he was genuinely surprised how much he enjoyed my entry, but he could tell me for a fact it wouldn't win. And I was like, oh, okay. And he was like, but don't take that as a bad thing. Like, I know that sort of thing won't win. And in the end, I mean, all the entries who won were fantastic, and a number of the ones who didn't win were. I think it was just a competition with so much strong, competition. There was so many good entries going on that it would have been. I mean, I feel almost sorry for the judges to have to pick between those sort of top tier entries.
Yeah,
that must have been. I have no insight into what the voting process was like, or who even was on the voting committee, but that had to have been really difficult to go through.
Yeah,
Definitely.
they paid Simon Cowell to come up and just like trash everyone. I imagine it kind of like an American Idol like thing. They just have all the entries, have 4 judges sitting there at like a little table and just talking shit about everything they see.
Is that crap show still running over there?
I think
they
it's
just
finally
ended it.
over.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Good.
We learned it from watching you, Kev. Come
It's
on.
all your fault.
The fad has kind of died over here. I think those shows are close to cancellation now, thankfully.
Okay.
Thank God.
How about Big Brother? Is that still running strong?
Well, the weird thing with Big Brother, it was originally aired on Channel 4 for like 10 years, and then they axed it because of ratings. And then Channel 5 bought the rights. They brought it back, and it's become like the biggest it's ever been. So it's kind of had a second lease of life. I guess it's that thing where you take something away for a few years, you bring it back, and suddenly people want to see it again.
You never know what it is you have.
So, but yeah, anyway, I guess moving on, I said we didn't want to go too in-depth on the trip, especially you, Chad. You've already spoken about it for
I don't think we've heard from Rodrigo yet about
this is what I was going to say. I was going to say, Rodrigo, maybe if you want to bring us through some of your talk us through some of your highlights and your overall impressions of the trip.
Yeah,
I was
sure.
I was going to say too, if you want to start that off with maybe how is it like how you found out winning, what that experience was like, maybe segue that into the trip.
Okay. Yeah, I found out like probably 2 to 3 days when the contest finished, and it was on Twitter. First Emma messaged me by Twitter and telling me we're getting information from all the contestants. Can you tell me your full name and email address? And I saw that and I said, oh, okay. It's a little bit suspicious, but okay. And then I told them my name because it's the Seashell Studio account. And then she sent me a mail. And when I saw Rare in there, important message from Rare, my heart stopped. So yeah, I entered the mail and I was like trembling with excitement. I couldn't get together all the emotions that went on from when I saw that mail. And there I was in my office at work, and there was no one else around, so I was like, oh my God, can't believe this is happening.
Yeah, I can't even imagine just that feeling. I'm not even going to elaborate. I just cannot imagine like how that must have felt.
Yeah.
I might have had a heart attack if I had one. And just fell over.
Yeah, I told them at the very end of the trip that I was never as excited in my life than the time I received that mail. So I was thanking her for that.
Aww.
Yeah, that must have been such like a vicarious thrill for Emma to be the messenger for all of us. That like, she's the Oprah giving out free cars to everyone. Yeah. You get to go to Rare. You get to go to Rare. That must have been so much fun for her, knowing what that means to all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially with all the work I'm sure she had to do surrounding this whole thing, just to have that sort of fulfilling moment of
She was I mean, we praised her on the conversation about it, but Emma was the absolute best as far as putting this thing together. Obviously it was a team effort for especially the Rare community team, but just organizing the travel and coordinating between all of us, that was all Emma. And it's such an amazing, like, seemingly insurmountable task to get people from Canada, from Mexico, from the U.S., like all of us to arrive in England in the same hotel within like 12 hours of each other. That's such an insane task to hope to go absolutely flawlessly, and she did it.
Well, this is why I was so surprised that like no one from Europe won, because I like, you were all coming, as you say, from the Americas pretty much, and like, I mean, including the Mandy and Sebastian's dad, that's like 14 people flying over, all getting to. And didn't you like all land between like just two airports? Was it just Heathrow and Birmingham?
Yeah.
True.
God, I mean, to get all that, and the driver, to get like drivers to pick you all up and all at the hotel. All with enough time to rest up before everything began. It's just.
Yeah, Emma was great. I sorry, but she also helped me out because I was intending to spend time with my sister because she's currently living there in the UK. She's studying her master's degree, so I wanted to make her a visit, and I told Emma about it in the mail. I think I'm going to tell her, even though I couldn't. Even though it's possible that she will tell me no, the tickets are bought from these 2 days, but she was so great that she let me stay like 3 days beyond and keep the ticket back. So it was incredible for Emma, for me, and that Emma was so cool.
Oh, awesome! I didn't realize that. See, I assumed like every single person left as soon as the trip ended, but you got to stay on longer to see your sister. That's
awesome.
And that was totally on them. They didn't have to do that. They could have said you pay for your own flight, but
sure. I paid all for every day that I stay with my sister, but the flight back was incredible. Emma was so great.
Yeah, and in fact, as we're coming back, I think you guys had Olivier on, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if he mentioned, but he had some trouble getting through the airport as we were all leaving, and so I think he had to get like a separate flight, and Rare took care of that as well. Like Emma was on top of it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he did. He did sort of talk about that briefly, and so like the work never stopped for Emma. Like I suppose in my head, I think once you're all there, that's it, the job's over. But no, getting you all back safely as well.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think she slept for like a week straight, but like, oh man, we sometimes our show, The Conversation, is listened to by folks at Rare, so we were basically in the event that Craig Duncan was listening, we told him to give Emma a raise for this because it went so smoothly. She deserves so much credit. She is an unsung hero of Rare, but I want her to be sung.
Yes, we'll add our voices to that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Craig told us last week he listened to last week's episode, so if you're listening, Craig, we second that. Give Emma a raise.
The fans demand it. This is our feedback.
Yeah, we don't want a new Conquer. We want Emma to get more money.
Right. Awesome.
I noticed, but talking about that, there's quite a few jobs opened up on the Rare website this week, actually. A few on the community team, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know if any of you guys fancy trying out for that.
Let's all go work at Rare.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a dream job, huh?
Yeah, that would be awesome.
The biggest of all.
I know. I keep waiting for there to be like an IT open, because that's what I do for a living. I work in IT. And I was like, maybe there'll be something open up over there. I'm sure they have an IT department.
Oh, cool. Are you like a DevOps, or are you do you sort of do hardware support for a company?
I would be considered level 2 support.
Nice.
So I don't pick up the phones. I get tickets sent to me, and Yeah, it's. If you're curious, I'll talk to you a little bit after the show about it. But
Sure.
it's so complicated to explain who exactly I work for because of a whole bunch of like corporate nonsense and red tape. So, but basically, I'm supporting 3 different massive corporations out of the same building, while identifying myself as one corporation while getting a paycheck from another.
Oh yeah, that sounds totally reasonable.
Yeah.
You're not pulled in too many directions at work, are you?
Nope, not at all. Shoot. So where were we? Oh, Rare Trip.
Yeah, that whole thing.
That thing. Yeah. Rodrigo, did you go? You didn't. What were your like highlights? Like anything? Yeah.
okay.
Like if you had like 3 or 4 just standout moments and things that happened on the trip. Like if you could go through those.
Yeah, sure. Well, I spoke to Greg kind of a lot, but well, to Ryan and Greg Miles. I saw them, and well, Greg, it's like a legend, so I was very nervous about talking to him, and in any chance I had to talk to him, I would do. So I wanted not to be like kind of a stalker kind of thing, but but yeah, when we were driving back to take in some dinner one day, they were like getting all people together in different cars, and they told me, "Are you going with Greg?" And just, oh, okay, yeah. I was nervous, but when I get into his car, I was trying to get to the right side, and he told me, "Are you going to drive?" And oh no, sorry. All
We've
that
had so
kind of
many
thing.
stories about that. People
Yeah.
trying to get in the wrong side of the car.
Yeah, and yeah, then we started talking about when he was working in the different headquarters, like across the street, and he was telling me, yeah, it's around there. All the people we were working, and it was like different times, and that the place is currently also probably, well, I don't know if I should tell this, but well, I don't know if it's kind of confidential, the owners of the property right now, but okay.
If you're concerned, don't even say.
Okay,
it.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
be
sure.
safe.
Okay. Yeah, and what else? Yeah, he was telling me about in the new headquarters, their first game was Banjo-Tooie, and that's my favorite game of all times. So I was like trying to get as much as possible details about the developing of Banjo-Tooie, everything that he hasn't told anyone yet, but it was so long ago. I think every single detail has already been thought about, so I was okay.
I love that you're a Banjo-Tooie fan specifically.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
one that, a lot of people prefer Banjo-Kazooie because it's kind of the simpler experience, but and I was that way when Tooie first came out, but as I've gotten older, and I'm now replaying Banjo-Tooie, you start to realize how brilliant and complex that game is, and a lot of people don't think of it that way because they got frustrated trying to play it in the same way as Banjo-Kazooie. But yeah, that's really cool to hear that Tooie is your favorite. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like the Banjo-Kazooie formula, but a little bigger and more like puzzling kind of. You have to travel back to the world that you already been there. So I love that kind of puzzly thing.
Awesome.
And also the new moves, and it's bigger, but not in a bad way from my point of view. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
isn't it crazy how it has all the moves from the first game?
Yeah.
and then they add on to that.
yeah, they managed to do that, so it was incredible.
Yeah,
And
I
it's,
like
it's
how
crazy, like how in the original game, like you gradually learned all these moves, and you just they became like second nature. But the second game, I guess a lot of, especially more casual players who may not have played the original game for like 2-3 years, and it's like, all right, guys, you remember all your moves? Yeah, well, you've got some new ones now. Like straight away, you go to Spiral Mountain, and I mean, I think, can you like go and speak to Bottle's Ghost to remind yourself of the moves?
Yeah,
Yeah. I think you can go to the molehills, but doesn't Jam Jars pop up, or his voice pops up for the molehills? It's weird. There are sections in the early stage of Tui where you'll get tooltips that are being told to you by Jam Jars, but you haven't actually met him yet.
Oh,
See,
yeah.
I thought Jam Jars appears when you pick up like a feather or an egg, whereas
That might be what I'm thinking.
Bottles
Yeah.
Ghost appears
Right.
if you go to a molehill tutorial.
Yeah.
Okay, that's probably it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you should know. You're the one who's twitching it right now.
I know. Yeah, it's been a while since I was back in Spiral Mountain. I'm in the middle of Atlantis at the moment.
All right. Yeah, I haven't caught any for like over a month now. The problem is you do them like Sunday afternoons my time, and I work pretty much every Sunday all day. So I'll have to check them out on YouTube when I get a chance. I have just a quick side plug. I've got to say I have really enjoyed your Twitch your involuntary twitching series.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
You always come up with the best names too. It's always something ridiculous.
Well, that one is literally it. I was forced to because it was a Patreon milestone, so it was involuntary.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, it works out.
Yeah.
Little double in. Well, guess that would be considered a double entendre, kind of.
I think so.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's usually every time someone says that, it's usually sexual, but that one not really isn't really. So
No. You can have non-lewd entendre.
there you go. Non-lewd entendre. That's what we specialize here on the podcast. All right. Awesome.
Dave, just before we move on, you actually prefer Banjo-Kazooie, don't you?
I do. I don't know. I don't know. It's there's definitely things I like better about Tui. I think I was actually in the opposite boat as you guys. I preferred Tui when it came out, but when I just replayed them this year, I ended up preferring Kazooie again.
That's
I'm
totally valid. Kazooie
Yeah.
is brilliant.
Yeah.
There's just something. I think it's just the way my mind works. I like to go to an area and clear it all out, and then move on to the next.
Yeah.
Whereas I would get a little frustrated in Tui, where it's like I'll see something I can't get, and then I have to wait for get to this 4 or 5 levels down before I can finally get at it, which is fine.
Yeah.
And I think it.
I
there's.
got so frustrated playing Tui the first time because I had that 100%ing mindset that you really have to start playing Tui and shut off that part of your brain and just kind
Right.
of go wherever you're like, oh, I'm curious about that thing off in the distance in Pterodactyl Land. Let me go check it out. Nothing there? Okay, I'll come back later. You have to force yourself to be casual about everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely the key to enjoying it. And I think I did start to enjoy Tui a little bit more of the second half of my most recent playthrough when I started to get more into that mindset. But I was just coming off Kazooie, which I was trying to, 100% because I wanted all the stamps for Rare Replay. So then I immediately went into Banjo-Tooie with that same mindset. I need to get everything so I can get all the stamps. And one thing I noticed that was interesting about the way the achievements work in that game is that the achievements for Banjo-Kazooie are very set up for that 100% mindset. Well, Tui, they're more a casual mindset. They're just
They make no sense in
yeah,
Tui.
they make no sense at all.
Activate the rainbow? Okay. So you pop a Chivo for defeating Old King Cole, but for like none of the other bosses, it's so weird.
I think Tui's a victim of those early XBLA games where they could only have 12 achievements. I don't know if you know that was actually a limit imposed by Microsoft.
Oh, yeah.
They
For
could only
Xbox
have
Live
12
games.
achievements, and they could have no more than 200 gamer score. Since then, that has actually been lifted.
Yeah.
So yeah, they just kind of chose weird, like, I guess milestones. I guess Old King Cole's like an early milestone
Yeah.
in the game, because once you defeat Old King Cole, that activates Chuffy, so it's not just a random throwaway boss. I am right, and I like as soon as you kill
Yes.
him, then you
Yes,
can use the
yes.
train. Yeah, so that's kind of, I guess, more linked to, once you do that, then you're opening a bigger aspect of the game. I think if Tui was released now digitally, it would have, more like sort of maybe 30 achievements.
Right.
Because, I'm not so much an achievement hunter anymore, but when it's a game I really love and I know inside out, then of course I'm going to go for all the achievements. And Tui, it just felt like I wasn't challenged. I was just walking through
Yeah.
the game, getting them all.
think
you don't even know that there was an objective, and all of a sudden you've achieved it.
Yep. But it probably was made that way, as you said, because the game was designed to be less of a checklist like Kazooie was. So they probably let's just throw them in there so people get them naturally.
Yeah.
Whereas when you play through Kazooie, you're naturally going to kind of go through levels like a checklist. So it makes more sense for them to be that way. But yeah, I wish there was.
Dave, I will just say though, mate. Honestly, when you're playing 2E, just treat it more like a Zelda or Metroid game. Like, in those games, you always see stuff and you think, okay, I obviously need a different equipment and come back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's the way you have to. It's an adventure game. It's not really a 3D platform in the same vein as Mario or Banjo-Kazooie.
I have to really discipline myself when I play Assassin's Creed now too, or I'll never do the missions because I must collect all these chests, everything.
That's what happened. I have about like 170 hours on my Skyrim file, and I haven't even come close to finishing the main storyline. I've just been going off on. Yeah, I've just basically I go to a town, I explore it, I want to kind of get a sense of what life is like there, so I talk to all the NPCs, and I wind up collecting like dozens and dozens of quests. And so basically anytime I go to a town that has a quest, I wind up doing that. And I think I might have decided that I'm going to be on Ulfric Stormcloak's side, but that's about as far as I got through the main campaign. And yet I'm like a level 100 dual conjurer, so I've got my those demons. What are they? The I smell weakness. I've got 2 of those, so I don't even have to play the game anymore. I can just open a door and throw them inside.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like I've broken the experience and I've not come close to completing the game just because like there's just too much to do.
Yeah, the first time I started playing that game, I had this thing where I was like, I'm gonna get all the treasure from a dungeon. I'm not gonna leave anything. And then I would just end up over encumbered and spend like 30 minutes trying to walk back to the town to sell it all because I wanted to get everything.
Oh yeah, you gotta work on your stamina points.
Yeah. Eventually, I disciplined myself so that I could complete the main storyline, where it's like, if I see something, if I get an extra quest naturally, I'll go do it and complete it. But I'm not going to search the entire town to make sure I find everything until I'm done with the main story, and that's how I got through it.
Well, my biggest problem is when I'm just exploring the map. If I see the faint outline of a location that I haven't got on my map, I have to go and get that, and then you get there and then you see another icon in the distance, and then so I just end up like charting out the entire map before I've even done like my first 2 quests.
Yeah, there's that too, because then you can fast travel to every single one of those locations.
Yeah, so the game essentially becomes more of like a menu. Like literally you'll start a quest, warp somewhere, finish the quest, warp somewhere, and you just you spend more time on the menus once you've charted out the whole map. I mean, you get some people actually who play that game, they discipline themselves to never fast travel.
That's crazy.
I guess I can kind of see that for like a true adventurer, but I think the game is stylistically designed to take advantage of the fast travel, so I don't know. I couldn't never use it.
It seems like an interesting exercise, but
if you've got another 500 plus hours to throw on top.
Right. Yeah, I did it that way at first, not fast traveling, and then it just got, it's like I don't have nearly as much time to play video games as I used to. I don't need to be doing this.
Yeah.
I guess, we probably should go back on topic, because we're already an hour and 10 minutes.
This has been the Bethesda Cast.
Is there anything you want to add about the trip, Chad, that you have not spoken of before, or is there?
Oh God.
I know it's been like 5 or 6 hours of stuff, so there's probably nothing you missed. But
yeah, no, I think we hit all the major highlights. I would just reiterate in a general sense that for me the overall highlight was it wasn't even playing Sea of Thieves so much, even though that was like an absolutely brilliant experience, and I love the thin slice of the game that I have played to death, and I can't wait to see. Like a lot of that stuff in the cinematic trailer from E3, we were not privy to. So there's so much of it that's just got me like mentally salivating now now that I know what the mechanics of the core experience are, to think like, how are mermaids going to work? Like, how's a Kraken battle going to work? Because I know how you crew a ship, but I don't know how you defend yourself against a giant octopus. So.
Right.
Yeah, there's so much of that I'm looking forward to. That, I mean, even playing the game at Rare was brilliant, but to me, the number one thing was getting to interact, and I mean, interact makes it sound very dry. Getting to hang out with the people from Rare. They were just all so down to earth and casual. I think part of that might be owing to the fact that A, they have been historically secretive, so they're not beset constantly on all sides from fans, and B, they're in a relatively isolated location, so I feel like they don't really have like a cynical big city mindset. They're very down to earth people. It's like a perfect combination for the absolute nicest team that you could hope to spend time with, and they don't interact with fans all that much, so they're not exhausted from telling anecdotes. It was like they were just as excited to talk to us about their old projects or just their gaming fandom in general, as we were to talk to them. And it was so cool that we were all kind of meeting in the middle. It wasn't like we felt the way Rodrigo put it, like, I feel like I might be stalking Greg Mails a little bit. There was never that sense, even though we were all sort of nervous about it at first. We don't want to come on too strong. They were just so warm and welcoming, and like I feel like I made genuine friends. It's not just that now I've met these people and a bully for me. It's like these are people that I consider friends now, and that's something I absolutely was not expecting going into this. I had met some of them at E3 the year before, but this is them in their natural habitat. This is them when their guard's down. They're not at a trade show putting on their best behavior. They just are genuinely fantastic people.
Yeah, all of them.
Yeah, I'm still amazed. I mean, obviously I didn't get to meet them, but just even the fact that they interact with me so much on Twitter and just seem happy to talk to me when I have questions sometimes. It's just, I never could think of any other game dev or anyone else that would just sort of interact with the fans the way they do. It's really amazing. It's just really heartwarming to see that they seem appreciative to any fan that, puts forth an effort to, be a major fan site or fan person. They're just thankful that anyone that's there helping them out and spreading the word. And it's really heartwarming.
I think it helps that they Rare seem to have a community team that actually care about the community. It's not just there in name only. Like, they really seem to thrive on feedback and sort of, especially on Twitter, as you say. Like, pretty much every time we tweet out some now, we always get a response.
Yeah,
it's cool that they. Not only do they engage with us on social media, but they understand the underpinnings of each of our little subcultures. Like, we have people from Rare trolling us about the concept of the Donkey Kong universe, which DK Vine kind of defines. I mean, just yesterday, Chris Alcock was tweeting a photo of Bear, who is Banjo's canonical father, which is a ridiculous concept, but it's one that he's basically been prodding us with because he knows that we respect his quote-unquote word of God on this issue. So it's like they even take the time to understand where we're coming from as fans and play with us in our own sandbox.
Yeah, I saw that post and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that.
Yeah. And it's like it's not Rare doing it, it's Chris Alcock doing it. Or whomever it is at the time, But it's cool that they know that they are sort of speaking as Rare employees, but also Microsoft gives them enough freedom to basically be their own people on social media as well, without just shutting it down and you will say you're not allowed to have a social life on the internet.
Right.
That's never been the way that they treat their employees.
I know. I think it's great that they don't just feel like Microsoft Studio A, B, or C. They're really, especially after the last E3 of 2015, they seem to be like, this is a brand in and of itself. It's a Microsoft brand, but it's still a brand. It feels more like the way that, like Disney treats Marvel or Lucasfilm rather than, I can't think of another good example, but yeah.
Well, Disney Pixar would be the other side of it. Like, that's kind of the Nintendo relationship. Whereas I think, the Marvel Lucas is sort of how Microsoft treats them today. Yeah.
I do think there are still like maybe one or two missteps. Like I think because Microsoft own Rare IP, we do get like kind of problems like Young Conquer, which seems to have like gone away lately. Is that actually still happening or?
Oh no, it's out. I mean, that you can find. The dev kits were released. There's a series of YouTube videos of a guy actually playing the game.
Yeah,
I
saw
Dave,
those.
we should probably talk about that on our show.
Alright, who wants to check out some money for HoloLens?
It's really strange. They actually use the kind of the cruder name for the Professor, von Krippelspack, which was introduced in Live and Reloaded, which is horribly offensive, but they use that name in Young Conquer, probably not knowing what it actually means, because I think that those are sort of not the cripple part, but I think the other side of it is more of a UKism, and I don't think that the team making Young Conquer is from the UK, so perhaps they didn't quite know. But it's very strange to see something like that in a title that's ostensibly aimed at all audiences.
Right. Yeah, like if you use the word SPAC over here, I've just used it, but that's the kind of word that can actually get you arrested for.
It's like hate speech.
Yeah, that counts as hate speech now, which rightly so. Like I do agree with deterring that kind of speech. You know, so.
That's one of the aspects that's always kind of made us uncomfortable about that game, to be honest. That and the scene with the cogs perhaps haven't aged as well as some of the other parts of Conquer.
That's funny, actually. Dave, we were discussing this. Was it on the Conquer Quest episode where
it was one of them? Yeah, like that scene's really hard to watch now. I didn't get the thing you just mentioned because I guess I don't have my UK terms as up to date as you guys.
Yeah,
so
the word SPAC it's a highly offensive term for a mentally handicapped person.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah, I've never heard that before. I probably heard it before, but didn't realize what it meant.
I think in the 90s it was more of like it wasn't seen as highly offensive. And I think it was more through ignorance that they included it. Like
right.
I don't believe Rare or Chris Seaver, whoever had came up with the name, I don't believe they'd have tried to offend people people who suffer learning difficulties.
Probably a good analog in the US would be the word retarded, which was used. It was kind of just thrown around with reckless abandon in the 90s, and then we've all kind of become wiser.
That's one of those words that I know me and a lot of people my age, we still sometimes have to guard ourselves from saying it because it was so widely used when I was a kid, and we didn't even think about really, what it meant, or I mean, it was just like an insult, right?
Right.
And then you sort of get older, and it's like, that's not a good thing to say.
Right.
Trying to think about the connotations of what you say, and it's like,
right.
So you really have to look at those elements of those games as kind of a time capsule, and not try not to judge them too harshly, but they do make you feel a little squeegee in the modern age.
Yeah, I mean, on one, it's kind of twofold, because on one hand, it's uncomfortable and it kind of makes you cringe a little bit, but on the other hand, in terms of historical preservation, I'm glad those elements weren't censored, say in Rare Replay, for example. Like the game is presented as is. And, that's the way it was, and I think anyone playing now will understand. Okay, obviously those guys didn't realise the full extent back then of quite how offensive that actually could be to someone.
It's like, if you want to include a warning, fine, but I don't think you should, censor historical things. It's like, it's like you can't. It's like whitewashing history. It was ugly. It's going to make you uncomfortable a little bit, but you shouldn't pretend it didn't happen either.
Right.
It's like John Locke said, I needed that pain to get to where I am
today.
Right. I was wondering if something lost would come in. We were talking about it before the show started.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty incredible. I made this podcast today because right now I'm in the middle of rewatching Lost and playing Pokemon Go. So the two most addictive things you can imagine. I've actually torn myself away from.
So, Team Mystic, Kev? You Team Mystic?
Yep, Mystic. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good.
Rodrigo,
Yeah.
have you been playing Pokemon Go?
Oh no, I don't have that much of a time to do that.
Fair enough.
But the social networks are at the top of it, so I don't miss anything. Also,
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
It's
if you
okay,
don't have the
you've
time to
actually
devote.
got more of a life than us. So.
Yeah, that's true.
I really have
Productivity
no
at work has gone so down since that game came out.
everyone is like, at least in my department, is like playing it and is talking about it.
wow.
They're like, yeah, I'm gonna take a really slow walk down to the cafeteria today. I'm gonna just in case. I'm
Well,
like,
yeah,
all
like
right.
today, the most surreal moment. Like, I mean, like, you read all these things on the news, but today I was walking through town, and me and my son were both on smartphones, and this car pulled up to us, and this woman, like, she must have been about 30, 35. She looked like, a stereotypical, soccer mum, I guess you'd say. And she just shouted out the window, and she said, "Venonat, about 100 meters that way." I was like, "Oh, thanks."
That's awesome. I was not expecting it to be this popular. Like, I sort of only even had a passing interest in it on first. I'm like, again, it's not going to catch on. It's like, it's only going to work if like people really get involved with it and go out in groups and stuff. And people are going to play it for 5 minutes, realize they have to move, and then it'll probably die there. But
I think it was absolutely brilliant that they started it with the first generation roster, because that's the one that people nostalgically key into.
Right,
like
yeah.
adults that now have purchasing power, those are the Pokemon that they're going to be familiar with. And then once you get that huge audience hooked, then they can start broadening the mechanics and the Pokemon roster itself.
right.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
They've
I
done
love
a very... It's a buggy mess right now, but despite that, they've been doing it in a really smart way.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and the whole thing with the different teams has really just created this sort of social media rivalry that's really even fueled things even more. So it's like they definitely like tapped into something really psychological with everything the way it's designed.
Getting back to Rare and their community team, it's been cool to see that they've been like totally open about playing Pokemon Go on their official social media.
I know.
I was tweeting Charity back and forth, and like she was asking for advice, and she was saying, "Oh, where's the best place to get this or that?" And I was like, "Head to Birmingham. There's like 15 Pokestops right next to each other. You can just walk in a circle and
Yeah.
fill up with Pokeballs all day."
Oh,
I'm
you
like-
guys, working in Manhattan has done wonders for my training level.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem with working in living and working in a small town like I do. It's kind of like, I could treat myself to go to the city once every week or two.
Right.
But
That's one of the hardest things for me right now is after besides like the Wi-Fi area around where I live, if I get too far out of that, I lose 4G, and then I can't catch Pokemon. So it's like I have to go more into town to actually catch anything, or just catch the stuff in my house.
this is going to
So-
sound crazy, but I honestly would not be surprised if Pokemon Go actually gets some people to move to cities. Like, I can see that having such an addiction. People will move to more populated areas just to get the most out of this game.
You'll start to see it on apartment listings like Pokestop next door. It'll say like air conditioning, full washer and dryer, Pokestop adjacent.
Right.
I
mean,
you
Yelp
joked
just-
about it, mate, but it's already on Yelp. Yelp
That's what I was
are
gonna
listing
say.
Pokestops.
Yeah, like you can look filter it by restaurants near Pokestops now.
Wow.
What have he done?
So, sorry, Rodrigo, mate, before we wrap up, we kind of like asked you briefly and then started talking about Pokemon for 20 minutes. So, have you got anything like more you want to say about the trip at all?
Well, what else? It was great playing foot golf and singing. I think all of it is covered in back episodes. I listened to some of them, but what else is?
You could talk a little bit about what is it like when you first saw that trailer and you saw yourself
Oh,
in the E3 trailer. That's kind of a moment that I'm sure was special for you.
oh yeah, it was. When I was looking at the E3, it was like I thought probably all of the traveling was for like an E3 purpose, but it was just like something I thought in the minutes before the Rare's conference. But when I saw the trailer, it was mind blowing. I mean, I wanted to be more like kind of outgoing kind of guy, so there was more of me in the trailer. But it was great just to looking at everyone in the trip that has been at the E3. It was incredible looking at all of the winners and all of the fans in one trailer.
Yeah, it's just like you guys are now immortalized
Yeah.
forever. You know, I mean, I still look back at E3 trailers for, you know, games from way back when, and, you know, you're always going to be there right alongside the release, and it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really weird. One of the things that I think it's cool that Rodrigo, that we're both on this show at the same time, because we were actually on the same crew. It was us with Dan Duncan and Heil. And it was, I think that by the last day, we actually, you know, before everyone tricked us when we went to the bar and got drunk to the tavern, you know, we actually figured out the best way for us to run our ship. And you and I were sort of a team.
Exactly.
Because you were always up in the crow's nest and I was on the wheel. So we were talking, and meanwhile, Heil and Dan were taking care of below decks and the cannons for the most part. So it was cool that you know, we figured out exactly how our communication should be and what those roles and relationships should be really quickly, and it was a lot of fun getting to play it with you.
Yeah, the last day exactly. It was like when they told us, when the red light was spotted and we had to quit. I wouldn't want to quit. I could spend all day in there. Just a great team at the last minute. We were so bonded, so great team at the very last. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're definitely going to have to take that into the game itself. We
Yeah,
need to
sure.
Crew back up.
Yeah, sure. I don't have an Xbox One right now, but I'm planning on getting one before the Sea of Thieves comes out. So, yeah, I could.
Cool.
I
you
could
could play it on PC if you've got a Windows 10 PC.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking the same, but it's probably I would rather play on a Xbox One just to replay Rare Replay. So
yeah, fair enough. I mean, I'd never discourage someone from getting an Xbox One. I actually think it's the best current console, personally. So it's good to hear that Sea of Thieves is actually encouraging more sales of the system.
Yeah, I love my Xbox One, and I was so skeptical about it at first. Like, I was hardcore PS4 is going to be the console to play this generation, and Phil Spencer and Craig Duncan and everyone has really just completely changed my mind on it, and I just love it. It's like 90% of my gaming is on it now.
Yeah, I think it was sort of a confusing launch, though. I mean, it wasn't it initially like it came with this mandatory always online idea, and then there was the always on Connect, and you know there were a lot of really strange elements to the launch of the system that maybe they're still trying to recover from as far as the public awareness goes, but the company itself sort of backed off or rethought a lot of those elements after they saw the feedback, and I think that was definitely the right move to make. And the One has turned into a fantastic piece of hardware. Like
things like backwards compatibility and all these just features that people actually want, like the amount that they've put into OS improvements. And now the background music is coming next month finally, which is one thing that people have been complaining about.
Should have been there since launch.
It
was
should have
360 day one,
but there was missteps at the beginning, and then Phil Spencer has really been working overtime to sort of prioritize what's most important and then get everyone's features in. And I know backwards compatibility, I think, was like the top of his list, and now he's been going through stuff like screenshots, background music. And it's like anything that the fans are asking for, like, we're getting them. It might take them a while, But we're getting them. Like we thought it wasn't powerful enough. Now we're getting the Scorpio. Like every
many
complaint
teraflops?
is being addressed. 6. Oh my god, that's insane.
One small thing that I was disappointed about, at E3, Phil Spencer was wearing the original Xbox logo shirt. For the whole show, I was convinced they were going to announce backwards compatibility with the original Xbox. So I thought that's what the T-shirt was all about, but in the end, I think it was to show how far they've come.
Right.
So, which is, I mean, they've still done more than I ever expected just through the 360 backwards compatibility, which, I mean, for anyone who doesn't understand the tech behind that, that's a lot more complicated than just unlocking the ability to play a game.
Especially with the difference between the processors and CPUs used between the two consoles.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really surprised that they pulled that off, especially since I think the Xbox One CPUs at only at 1.8 clock speed, and the fact that they've managed to make that somehow emulate through a virtual machine 3 point something gigahertz power PC cores. I have no idea how they pulled that off.
Yeah, and there's still an operating system layered on top of it.
Right,
because you can back out of. I mean, you see it when you play a Rare Replay title. You can hold that menu button, and you'll get the little cursor there. I mean, if it's like the way that they do. Do you remember the 3DS had that ambassador program where they put a few Game Boy Advance titles on it?
Right.
But the system wasn't strong enough, or they couldn't figure out how to do that within the 3DS operating system, so it would actually shut down your system and reboot it as a Game Boy Advance using the backwards compatibility that the original DS had. So it's sort of like how you could play GameCube games theoretically on a Wii U using the Wii's back compat. But the that prevents a lot of the features that you get in the 3DS operating system.
Right.
Xbox found a way around that, and it's insane.
Yeah.
I don't understand why it's not running at 2 frames per second.
Yeah.
I thought it was technically impossible. People would always ask, and I was like, no, that's not possible. They can't do that. There's not enough horsepower for that to emulate that it can't work. But the technical wizards at Microsoft have figured something out, and
I thought the best we would ever get would be similar to what PlayStation do, the PS Now service. I thought we'd possibly see streaming 360 games, but I'm totally glad they went the other way, because even though it means it's not a subscription-based model, you have to pay for each individual piece of software. For people like me who have got maybe 100 360 games on the shelf, it means the vast majority of the ones I actually care about I can actually play just on the Xbox One, and I think there's very few games that I can't play on it now. I think I only keep my 360 for the backwards compatibility with the original Xbox.
Right.
So
I'm really happy that it's disc-based. I was not expecting that. Because, I mean, when Sony started putting, PS2 games added to... I mean, because technically the PS3 was emulating most of the PS2 games on the store, but, you had to buy it. Putting the disc didn't matter.
You had to buy them again, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, of course, some people with the original ones could have full backwards compatibility, but I was really kind of annoyed with that. It was okay, you clearly have made a working emulator now for the PS3, and old PS3s have it, so why can't my discs work on the newer ones? And I kind of expected that's how, if something like backwards compatibility ever came, as unlikely as it was, that there's no way they would let people just put discs in. It's not as much profit. But, so
I have a 360 Portal 2 disc, and back compat just came out for that. So I put the disc in my one, and it downloaded the back compat version.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
I wouldn't be surprised. As I know they've said they're not working on it now, but they've said that the idea of doing original Xbox is something they like, because I think that's kind of what they want going forward. Is the Xbox is a brand, and we have something as Xbox, it works on everything. So I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere down the line, once they get all the features that they want for current backwards compatibility and Xbox OS, if they look into maybe throwing up some original Xbox games, which shouldn't be that hard at all compared to getting the 360 to run on that. So, well, we've gone off topic. The think we covered about everything though. So
Yeah.
I guess we should probably get to wrapping up pretty soon.
There is one question I wanted to ask both of you
Okay.
actually about Sea of Thieves specifically. Now, this I was going to ask this a couple of weeks ago. I keep forgetting to ask every other person who's been on, but right. So Jeff has told me outright that he thinks, based on what he's played, he thinks Sea of Thieves is honestly the greatest game that Rare has ever made. How do you two feel about that? Do you think that's a possibility, or what are your thoughts?
Oh, I don't know, Rodrigo. Do you want to go first?
No, come on, Chad, go first.
Okay. Okay, sure. That's a tough one. I honestly I wouldn't think of it in that way. I have a hard time when I think about what my favorite game is, and the easy answer for me is Donkey Kong Country 2, but it's really hard to separate whether or not it's just because it is a brilliantly designed game, or how much of that is nostalgia. It's certainly a mix, but I know that it's one of the best games ever made by any objective viewpoint. It's my favorite because of that fact and because of who I was and when it was when I played it, and that I can go back to it at any point and enjoy it just as if it were the first time I were playing it. So it's hard to say how I would think of Sea of Thieves stacked up against any of the other games in Rare's library. So I know it's a non-answer, but I certainly think that Sea of Thieves is the perfect game for Rare to be making right now.
Yeah.
I think that it's doing what they always do in terms of world building, but also in terms of looking at a technology that exists and figuring out a way to layer on an experience you would have never even thought of on top of that. I'm speaking specifically of like online interactions for Sea of Thieves' case. And while doing that, though, once you actually see what Sea of Thieves is, it seems so obvious. It seems like, why hasn't anyone else done this before?
Yeah.
And then because it's so intuitive and it immediately clicks into place as an experience that should have happened a long time ago. But the fact that it's being made by Rare, and I know the level of quality that comes out of Rare, and with that cinematic trailer, we know what the experience is going to be like once it broadens. I think it's definitely a candidate for one of the all-time Rare great games. It's hard to say whether it's the great game because we're talking about many not just apples and oranges, but every type of fruit you can imagine. Cameo is the best guava that Rare has ever made. It's Donkey Kong Country 2 is the best apple. Banjo-Tooie is the best orange. Sea of Thieves is going to be the best banana, ironically. Probably should have been Donkey Kong. But you know what I mean? It's like it's hard to say. Rare is just they consistently put out top-notch quality titles
Right.
that are exactly what they need to be for the time at which they come out. And
Right.
I certainly think that that's Sea of Thieves.
All right, good answer.
Awesome.
Good answer.
Yeah,
Rodrigo.
Bravo.
Yeah, I mean, Sea of Thieves obviously is like their most gorgeous games yet. It's incredible. All the looks are incredible. Everything they told us about all the from the concept art until all the departments they showed us, it was incredible in that way. In gameplay wise, it's something I haven't played ever, and it was so immersive. That's the part that I think it's the most important. The immersive kind of thing you can have in Sea of Thieves is what separates them from the rest of the games. And I mean, the pirate thing, it's something since I played Sea of Thieves, it's been on my mind all the time. I mean, I recently have been 2 years with my girlfriend, and I made her a surprise about pirate kind of treasure hunt inspired in Sea of Thieves, and it was like all of the time in my mind. So I thought, well, probably that's a nice gift. So it's immersive gameplay wise, and also in your personal life. So that's what I think can stand out from the game.
Awesome. Yeah, I my excitement has just been increasing and increasing. So at first I was like, is this gonna be? I've never played a Rare big multiplayer game like this. How is this gonna work? And is it gonna be fun? Because I've been kind of a little bit enjoying online games less, just because of how toxic the community has gotten.
Yeah.
And then, but just how positive like everyone surrounding the Sea of Thieves community is, and I've never been this excited about a multiplayer game or a game period for so long. Just I'm excited to get online and actually play with people who aren't going to cuss me out, and it's really exciting. And I think almost all of my skepticism has gone away completely, and I just want to get my hands on it so I can just have the same experience everyone we've had on the show has had so far. And that many people can't be wrong.
Yeah, and also all the rare charm is in there, so it's the time you see Sea of Thieves, even though you don't know it's a rare title, you just this is kind of all the charm that Rare's brought into the years. It's all unified into Sea of Thieves. So
yeah, that's one of the stranger things, because the Rare sense of humor has usually been something that they themselves put into the game. Conker's Bad Fur Day has a script. In Banjo-Tooie, every snarky interaction that you have with a character, someone wrote that, probably Greg Mayles. But those are always sort of hard-coded into the experience, whereas Sea of Thieves, you feel that same sense of existing in this hilarious world that's just inherently funny, but none of those things are written. You're actually living out the experience of being in a hilarious Rare game.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah, it really seems engineered just with all the options. The limited amount they gave you just seems engineered to create those sort of classic Rare moments.
Yeah. I mean, and we're only talking about a build that has 3 items in your inventory,
Right.
Imagine what's going to happen when battle mechanics are implemented, like cutlasses and blunderbusses, and there are so many different things that we've had teased out and we've seen in the cinematic trailer that is just going to, I mean, if they can force everyone, not just us, everyone at E3 to get behind this product with such a little thin slice of the experience on display. Imagine what it's going to be like when the whole scope is broadened.
Yeah.
Right. When we can smack people with fishes.
When you use that E3 example, I mean, if I look at the way the game changed in terms of the critical reaction that week between the Monday and the Thursday, it's quite astaunding. Cause
they went from saying that we were all fake paid actors because nobody plays a game like that, and then when we got to the booth, everyone was screaming as they were playing the game. It was like literally the next day, all these YouTube criticisms and everything were immediately proved to be false.
Right. Yeah. They kind of ate their words that week, because I mean there was that one, I can't remember his name, that one critic. Was he
from
from
IGN,
IGN?
I think.
Yeah, Ryan something. Yeah, Ryan
It was
McCafferty. Yeah,
and it's like, I was looking forward to this game, but then those dorks ruined it, or something kind of really passive aggressive like
shitty
that.
YouTubers, I think it was.
Yeah,
something like that. Shitty paid YouTubers, I think, something like that.
And then Craig Duncan directly responded. He was like, "Hey man, but in a very polite way, kind of said shut the hell up, just play it."
I think his tweet was "Let's talk" or something like that.
Yeah.
But then to Ryan's credit, when he got his hands on the game, he immediately changed his tune, and he was like, "Okay, I get it now."
Yeah, exactly.
Did you see that?
The turn of the tide that, well, no pun intended, but yeah, the turn of the tide that week, and how Dave said a couple of times, from all accounts, the 2 most popular games at E3 this year were a Rare game and a Nintendo game, which it it's crazy. I mean, no disrespect to, I still have a lot of affection for Nintendo, and obviously I adore Rare, but in terms of mainstream critical appeal, like, I think it would be hard to argue that they're as relevant as they were 20 years ago. But like, they've really done a good job kind of, turning people around, as we said.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like go ahead.
I was gonna say, I feel like people are sort of ready to feel like kids again. It's a weird
Right.
statement, but the games that are traditionally popular are the ones that they use seriousness as a shorthand for maturity. Which we're in an era now where you don't just need a space marine glowering into a camera to prove that a game is worth playing. It's really people are starting to realize now that gaming, it is becoming democratized thanks to smartphones and things like that. And people just generally want to have fun when they play a game.
Yeah.
So it's no longer the domain of these quote-unquote hardcore mature gamers. Games are now skewing back to how they were in the early stages of the industry, where they're just about cultivating fun experiences. And Rare's always been doing that. Nintendo's always been doing that. So I think it's really cool to that these two companies are now back at the top of their game in the public's eye, but they've never changed what they've been doing. It's just finally people are realizing this is what gaming is all about.
Yeah. Well, I think for both Nintendo and Rare, I think their software output slowed down a lot, sort of the last 5-10 years, or at least the software that I would care about. Like I said before, and I think you, Chad, have mentioned it in the conversation. The Kinect Sports games may not be traditionally the kind of games you would go out and play, but on a technical level, they're very impressive.
Oh yeah,
and I guess now they're developing this Sea of Thieves, which it just seems like it would appeal not only to the traditional Rare hardcore fans like us, but to a widespread audience. And the same with Nintendo, really. Like, Zelda seems like it's really, I don't know what your feelings on Zelda are, but I'm really impressed by what I've seen so far, and it seems to have
same
taken off.
It seems like they're finally pushing like a franchise forward again. Which they've been making good games. I'm not saying they haven't. A lot of the games they've made over the past couple generations have been great. But I always felt like they were really playing it safe and going more to nostalgia throwbacks. Maybe throw a gimmick in here and here. And they made some really good games. But this is like the first game Nintendo has made in ages where it really feels like they're taking the formula and pushing it forward in an entirely new way.
Yeah.
And it's
really funny.
exciting.
I was actually at E3. I was talking about the evolution of the Zelda series with Mike Chapman, the lead designer on Sea of Thieves. He's a Zelda mega fan, and we were sort of having that a version of that same conversation about how the series, this really seems like pushing the series in a strange way, both like forward into new territory, but also going back to those original NES version roots where you're deposited in a world and you figure it out. But yeah, it was cool to be like. That was another thing about the folks from Rare. Like, everyone just loves games. It doesn't matter that Zelda's not a Microsoft product. Like, they were frustrated because they were working the Sea of Thieves booth and didn't have an opportunity to go look at a lot of the cool titles that were on the show floor. Right. But no, I love that they're all just passionate about these great experiences regardless of what company's name is on the box.
Yeah,
it's awesome. The 90s have returned. That's what it feels like. I mean, seriously, Pokemon, Rare, Nintendo, and people are talking about new Star Wars movies. Disney makes good movies again. Like
Ukulele coming this. Toy box coming this week.
Marvel. Yeah. I mean, like, literally, like, every single thing from my childhood that I loved is like popular again.
Next week we got Sonic, the next gen Sonic that's been in development for 5 years.
Let's. I'm not going to be excited about that till I see it because I don't want to be disappointed. After the last couple, I'm sorry, I'm not going to get my hopes up till I see it.
The power of IP only goes so far for you.
Well, just so you know, Dave, this is the same team who made Adventure 1 and 2 and Generations. So that's a good pedigree.
It is.
This is like, the Sonic team equivalent of the Greg Mayles team. So, that can't be too bad, can it?
Sonic Boom 2!
Right, Rodrigo, Chad, have you guys got anything else you want to add? Because I think we're really going to have to wrap up in a minute.
Oh yeah, no, just thanks for having us, and it was just a fantastic experience to be at Rare, and I really appreciate that you guys are reaching out to. I mean, I've got a platform to talk about all this crap, but I love that you've really made an effort to reach out to as many folks from the trip, like Rodrigo, like Olivier, Alex, etc., who don't have podcasts or platforms to talk about it, because meeting these guys, Rodrigo, meeting you and getting to like become friends with you was one of the absolute thrills of the trip, and I feel like you're all such great people and talented that people need to know what your perspectives are and what your backgrounds are. So thanks to you guys on the Logcast for making the effort. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's been a real big blast scheduling all these interviews and meeting all you guys, hearing your stories, and just feel like I'm making new friends as well. Like, I think I mentioned a couple episodes ago that is kind of feels like I'm sort of formed a second family out of having this podcast and this site. Even though I didn't go on the trip, I've still used all of this thing as a way to make new connections and new friends that, I never thought I'd have, and it's been great. And I'm so glad that both of you guys agreed to be on the show. And, reaching out only goes so far if no one is interested in being on, so I'm really honored and happy you guys accepted.
Yeah, thanks a lot for inviting us again, and thanks to all the Rare team, the Emma, Bobby, Greg, Craig, all of the team. I mean, there's a lot of people that couldn't be covered, but thanks to all of them and all the Rare fans that are now my friends, and I hope to play Sea of Thieves when the game comes out with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. We look forward to seeing both of you on the Sea of Thieves.
Yeah.
You'll probably come and steal my ship. I know who you guys are.
Oh yeah, we've got a little bit of a leg up on you.
I'll be like all excited. That's the first time of playing it. And then you guys will come rolling along with all your experience and just destroy me.
Oh yeah, we'll lower the anchor, whip around, and come right back.
You're like the Rare equivalent of the Pokemon Go beta testers who've already got like level 4,000 Charizards or whatever. Right. So yeah. Okay. Yeah. Again, thanks to you two for coming on the show. It's been a great month. I think we've spoken to so many people, as we said, who we wouldn't normally have had a chance to have on the show, and yeah, it's been really fun forging new connections. Some of you, as you mentioned, Chad, some of you already have platforms, and I think most of the quote unquote fans who won, the actual contest entry people, most of them don't actually have their own platform. So people like Rodrigo, Olivia, and Alex, it's been great, giving you a chance to speak your mind. And it's I was worried. I mean, I'll admit, back on the second week we did it, I was worried how much mileage can we get out of this, because it's finding the balance between allowing people to share their experiences but not getting too much repetition for the show itself. Yeah. But I think it's worked out really well, and everyone's brought a unique voice to this.
Yeah, it's been great. I feel like I've gotten along with everyone that's been on the show. It's there's been no conflicting personalities. Everyone just gets on, and then we instantly have that connection of being Rare fans, and we just talk about shit that we love. It's great.
Yeah.
Right, so I guess it's about time to call it a day. Next week, we haven't completely locked down what we're doing yet, but it'll probably be our first traditional episode in about 2 months. So, back to basics next week. I think Jeff's going to be with us. So,
hopefully.
Yeah, for everyone at home, have a great week, and thanks for listening.
Yep, you guys have a great weekend.
Thanks.
Likewise.
Bye.
Bye.